This is a KOAT Action 7 News Commitment 2022 gubernatorial debate.
Welcome to the 2022 gubernatorial debate. Good evening, I'm Doug Fernandez. Early voting, as you know, just started in New Mexico. We are committed to helping you make an informed decision at the polls. Well, tonight, you will hear from two of the candidates wanting to lead our state. The incumbent Democrat, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and her challenger, Republican Mark Ronchetti. Well, tonight's debate is a partnership between KOAT, the Albuquerque Journal, and KKOB Radio. I am the monitor. KOAT anchor Shelley Rabando is a panelist, along with Dan Boyd from the Albuquerque Journal and Bob Clark from KKOB Radio. Now, just a quick note about the rules tonight. Each candidate gets 90 seconds for opening statements and 90 seconds to answer questions, and they will be allowed 2 rebuttals at their request, and their opponent will be given 30 seconds to respond. Now, closing statements will be 1 minute long. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for being our timekeeper tonight. Now, when time is up, the candidate can finish their sentence, and my decision as moderator is final. The order for opening statements was determined by a hat draw. Mr. Ronchetti, you go first, and again, 90 seconds.
Doug, thanks very much. Thank you to Channel 7 and thank you to the governor for joining me here tonight. We have 2 very distinct paths that are going to be presented to you tonight. One we've been on, and another I'm asking you to go on a different path. But the path we've been on is a clear one. We are the second most violent state in the country. This governor has released 700 inmates early, many of which have gone back out and reoffended. We are right now 20% lower in our prison population than when this governor took over. She is emptying the prisons. We still have catch and release, and she regularly appoints judges who are catch and release judges. This is not bad luck, it's bad policy, and we have a plan to fix it. So many families across New Mexico are struggling just to get to the end of the month. But yet, the government in Santa Fe has never been bigger and never been richer. It's 40% bigger than when this governor took over. But if I asked you, is your family better off because of it? For too many families, the answer is no. This is not bad luck, it's bad policy, and we have a plan to fix this too. Now, the governor's going to tell you tonight that because I haven't spent a lifetime in government, I can't solve these problems. But the reality is, it's the governor's lifetime in government and Joe Biden's lifetime in government that has gotten us in the spot we're in today. We can have better schools, we can absolutely keep violent criminals behind bars, and we can get you enough money to get to the end of the month. But we can't get there until we choose a different path, and I look forward to making that case tonight.
Governor Lujan Grisham, your minute and a half opening statements.
Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight. We've come a long way in 4 years, and we've been through a lot together as New Mexicans, but I remain steadfast in my optimism about what comes next, because despite the challenges of a pandemic, fire, and floods, we have transformed the trajectory of this beloved state. Unemployment is at a 14-year low, with more than 28,000 jobs added just last year. We've invested billions of dollars into our public school classrooms, into pay raises for teachers, into expanded pre-K and daycare, and into tuition-free higher education for thousands of New Mexicans. We have strengthened and diversified our economy, and we've made it easier for thousands of New Mexicans to access the health care that they need. We have planted the seeds. Positive change is truly our state's destiny, but progress is not promised, and the threat of going backward is real. New Mexicans expect and deserve more, which is why we must keep building back our broken mental health system. It's why we need to add public safety initiatives into our neighborhoods and communities. It's why we need the strength of state government to help cities address complex problems that are plaguing them, like right here in Albuquerque. But I want to make clear what the stakes are in this election. A woman's equality and right to make deeply personal health care decisions is on the ballot in New Mexico. My opponent wants to ban abortion. As governor, I promise to protect your privacy protections and to expand access to reproductive health care for women and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Our first question tonight comes from anchor Shelley Rabando.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. Crime is a huge issue in our state. Not a day goes by we don't hear about crime and how it affects New Mexicans. What system is broken, law enforcement or the courts? And what is the very first thing you would do to get crime under control?
Mr. Ronchetti, you go first.
Doug, thanks very much. And I'll tell you, the broken system is the one the governor has brought in. It's a catch and release mentality from the top on down. Remember, this governor, when we started COVID, started releasing prisoners from jail early. She only stopped a couple of weeks ago when our campaign called her out on it. And one of the people that was involved in one of those releases is Chris Beltran. His story is shocking. He was released early from prison, and then he was on the phone from prison before being released, talking to his girlfriend, saying he was coming to get her, and he could get a gun within 2 days, and he would come to her front door. He made good on that promise. He showed up to her door 4 days later and shot her. This is the kind of story we see too often across New Mexico because we have a soft on crime approach and a catch and release approach. This is not a problem with police officers. We have heroes all over this state who are leaving the business. In fact, you look at where we are, and the governor talks all the time about how she's added more money to state police, and she definitely should. But there are 10% fewer state police officers today than when she took office. The cops know that this governor doesn't back them up. She catches them and releases them. She appoints judges that catch and release them. She regularly appoints people to the parole board that catch and release them. You can't expect police officers to make up for all of this when they keep having to deal with the same criminals over and over again and a governor who doesn't support them.
Governor Lujan Grisham, your reply?
What's shocking is my opponent's description of facts that are factless. The case that he talks about, Mr. Beltran, in fact should have been in jail longer, but a Republican DA and judge failed to prosecute him for felony gun charges. And having a gun is exactly what led to this tragedy. And politicizing a tragedy of this nature is really unacceptable. What we are doing is making sure that we are including public safety investments at the highest degree. I inherited a government that had 425 less officers in Albuquerque alone, let alone the hundreds of officers that Republican budget cuts keep bringing to New Mexico statewide. So $400 million for smart policing. That's a crime lab, that's equipment, that's training. That's also making sure that we do gun detection technology. It also means $72 million for additional officers. My opponent didn't tell you about 317 officers just added in the last couple of weeks, at least those positions. 16% raises to state police who have been assigned to Albuquerque, hundreds of arrests, hundreds of felony apprehensions, and we continue to make those kinds of investments for smart policing because the budget was completely decimated by reckless Republican GOP budget cuts that have nothing to do with public safety. We are not letting out criminals. In fact, Susana Martinez, your mentor, let out 4,000 more individuals out of corrections than we did in the last 4 years. It's just false.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Dan Boyd.
Good evening. Following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade, abortion is a hot topic for voters around the nation. Here in New Mexico, voters are hearing a lot of back and forth on the issue in this race in particular. There's certainly a lot of ad time devoted to it as well. Please clearly state your stance on abortion and talk about how you, as governor, would enforce that stance.
Governor, you go first.
Well, abortion is legal in New Mexico because I'm governor today. Brett Kavanaugh. I'm sure that name is very familiar to most voters and New Mexicans. Here is someone who said anything to get the position, but did quite another when he got the position. That is the Republican playbook when it comes to abortion. Look, my opponent has changed his position on abortion more often than the weather changes in New Mexico. I have been clear from the very beginning. Women deserve the ability to make decisions that are deeply personal and to have the autonomy over their own bodies. Most abortions, and he's going to tell you that, are happening later in pregnancy. It's false, and these are deeply serious medical emergencies. Mark Ronchetti wants to ban abortion. If you don't believe me, ask his pastor, Pastor Smotherman. This is the playbook. 13 states have banned abortion. He wants to be the governor that adds New Mexico as the 14th state to ban abortion. Women have a choice in New Mexico today because I'm governor. Now, he's going to tell you in his answer that his constitutional amendment is giving women choice. What it really means is he's taking that choice away.
Mark Ronchetti, your reply?
Governor, first and foremost, I don't think an incumbent governor in the history of this country has ever based their whole campaign on a lie. I have never said I want to ban abortion. Never. It's never been said. But you and your DC allies will say anything to retain your seat as governor of the state of New Mexico. You will say anything you have to, and you're hoping that people don't know. But the reality of the situation is, I've been very clear. I am pro-life, but also this is a very personal issue. There's no doubt about that. And this governor has a position too, and it's the extreme in this race. She believes in abortion up to birth. That view is shared by countries like North Korea and China. And if you look at where we are in a broad sense, the values of the people of the state of New Mexico have to be taken into account in this issue. So what I've said from the very beginning is no politician should make this choice for you. Right now, the governor has appropriated $10 million for a late-term abortion clinic in Las Cruces to service Texas with New Mexico taxpayer dollars. That is not consistent with the values of the people of this state. So what do? We vote on it. And what we do on that sense, you have the state legislature, which puts together an amendment that goes in front of the voters. I don't get to fully make that choice, but there's no question I would like to be able to offer an opinion on it, just like you should. But the governor, she doesn't want you to vote on this because she wants to make the call for you.
Bob Clark, you have our next question, please.
How do I do the rebuttal?
If you're requesting one of your rebuttals, go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
I
Governor.
am. Doug, women already have a choice over their deeply personal healthcare decisions. No woman shows up later in pregnancy and chooses an abortion. He's gaslighting an issue to get you to believe that having a constitutional amendment, which is just another way of saying I will ban abortion, it's outrageous. Women in New Mexico already have that choice and those protections.
Okay, Bob Clark, you're next, please.
Many New Mexicans living near the border say crime is destroying their businesses and livelihood, and that drugs like fentanyl coming across the border from Mexico are out of control. Do you believe there is a border crisis, and what would you do to fix it? And if you could be specific, please.
Mark Ronchetti, you go first.
Yes, there is absolutely a border crisis, and this governor, the first thing she did when she came into office 4 years ago was remove the National Guard from the border. That opened up the free flow of fentanyl into the state of New Mexico, which kills one New Mexican a day here in the state. It is devastating. Joe Biden has overseen this as well over the past couple of years. This year alone, we've seen 2 million border arrests. That's the whole population of the state of New Mexico. Joe Biden and Michelle Lujan Grisham have an absolute border chaos policy. What else do we have in all of this? We also have a sanctuary state policy. What does that mean? Well, it means when someone commits a crime in one of our communities, the governor makes it so that that local law enforcement agency can't contact the feds to check on their immigration status so that we could get people that are committing violent crimes out of the state. This is leading to the chaos that we see across New Mexico. So what would we do? Number one, we're going to add the National Guard back to the border here to supplement our Border Patrol, which is 600 border agents short right now. We're also going to add a border strike force that's going to have 2 jobs, and it's going to be 150 agents from the Department of Public Safety, and what they're going to do is go after fentanyl and the human trafficking flow into the state of New Mexico. We're also going to work with states on either side of us, which we're not doing now for political reasons. That will change. We have to secure the border. We know where this fentanyl is coming from. It's coming from Mexico. This governor talked a good game 4 years ago when she said we need to secure the border. I heard her say it all the time. She's done nothing to secure the border, and I will.
Governor, your reply.
Well, this is just political theater, and it's not true. And when you say you're going to use the Department of Public Safety, what he's saying is he's going to take state police officers right out of Albuquerque and move them to Deming. His own primary opponent, a former brigadier general of the National Guard, said that his idea was laughable. He openly scoffed because you have to have a mission at the border that is federalized, and National Guard members cannot do that. When I went and visited the border early in my, after I was elected governor, What I found is members of the National Guard, literally on the Trump plan and Trump designation, were brushing horses and changing the oil in ATVs because they can't be on the border and do anything. You know what they're doing now? Members of the New Mexico National Guard are involved in drug intelligence, counter surveillance, surveillance, and drug interdiction, which, by the way, helped lead to one of the largest fentanyl busts. That is smart and a mission-driven strategic deployment of the National Guard. What happens when you do what Mark Ronchetti is suggesting? You don't have the National Guard for fires, for floods, for any other emergency in the state. And what's happening in Texas right now is billions of dollars, let me repeat, billions of dollars for Trump political theater, where we have some of the highest suicide rates for National Guard men and women because they can't do anything in that regard. A strike force isn't what we need to stay the course. And by the way, fentanyl gets mailed in from China as well as at the border.
I'd like to step in here.
Go ahead. Your first rebuttal, Mark. Go
Well,
ahead.
first and foremost, I think you look at a governor right now who makes a lot of excuses right there. That was a blizzard of excuses for not caring about what happens at the border. Let's go back to that fentanyl bust in the South Valley where there were 1 million fentanyl pills that were taken in by the FBI. It was the biggest FBI bust in their history. And when the Sureños drug cartel was asked, why are you in New Mexico? You're usually in California and Mexico. You know what they said? They said, because it's easy to be us here. She's created a soft on crime environment, an open border, and we're all paying for it with more dangerous streets. Her answer to this whole problem
Time's up, Mark.
shows how out of touch she truly is.
The crisis of the unhoused has reached new levels in Albuquerque and statewide. Now, this next question on homelessness comes from voter Christian Matthias of Albuquerque.
I'd like to know what they plan to do to address the homeless situation in Albuquerque as well as other cities. I'm sure it's probably prominent in most other towns, but specifically Albuquerque because that's where I do live.
Governor Lujan Grisham, you go first.
So homelessness, particularly what we're seeing today all across the country and frankly right here in New Mexico, is chronic homelessness. It's caused by 3 distinct issues. 1, access to affordable housing, 2, mental health, and 3, substance abuse. Unfortunately, in New Mexico, far too many of these individuals suffer from all 3 of those issues. Now, I want to take us back a moment. We were the only state in the Governor Martinez administration, my opponent's mentor and campaign supporter, who illegally eradicated all mental health services in the state of New Mexico. And it has had catastrophic impacts right here in Albuquerque. Here's what we need to do. First, we need to make sure that we're building affordable housing so that we prevent homelessness in the first place and we're supporting New Mexicans. We've secured $25 million up to $100 million to build just that and have equity for struggling at-risk New Mexico families. That'll build more than 30,000 houses and we're on the way to do 6,000 right now. 2, we have been rebuilding our mental health system. So we're expanding hospitals with inpatient beds in Valencia County and Sierra County. We're doing it in Clovis, we're doing it in Hobbs, and we just broke ground at an in and outpatient emergency triage center just at UNM. And 3rd, we're going to need to use the power of the state to make sure that we have pandering and trespass laws, because we're going to need a little tough love here to make sure that the folks that we are supporting are going towards treatment. What we can't have is incarcerating and busing our way out of this problem.
Mark Ronchetti, you're next, please.
Well, when you look at where we are with this problem, the real issue is the fact that we're headed for the California solution. And so often that's exactly what this governor backs, whether it's environmental policy or whether it's policy with homelessness. We are seeing it explode, and it has exploded in her 4 years as governor because one of the people that she works most closely with in this process is Mayor Tim Keller. And Mayor Tim Keller has no feel for this. But does this governor go to Keller and say, wait a minute, you got to get this thing under control? No, absolutely not. So there's a few things we can do here. But speaking of mentors, Governor, you're a great mentor to Tim Keller, and we see the results on the street. So what can we do to fix it? Well, first and foremost here, for those who need treatment, we absolutely will continue to expand our mental health treatments across the board here and substance abuse treatment as well. And we can also provide temporary housing. There's no question that's a critical portion of this when we can do it. But for those who don't want help, for those who say, yeah, I'm good, I'm going to stay on the street, New Mexico is not your campground, and people have to understand that. So what I've proposed is a ban on tent cities in the state of New Mexico. You cannot set up tent cities around this state. And Mayor Keller, again, wants to do that all over the city of Albuquerque, and we've seen it destroy cities along the West Coast. So I have committed to signing that bill. This governor will not commit to signing that bill. She pushes off and acts like she's running against Governor Martinez. She's not. She has to defend her own record. But if I had her record, I'd probably mention Governor Martinez a whole lot as well.
Shelley Rabando has our next question. Shelley, please.
Hundreds of thousands of Americans go into bankruptcy because of soaring medical costs and health care they cannot afford to pay off. What specifically is your plan to make health care affordable to New Mexicans and help those still suffering under the weight of medical debt?
Mr. Ronchetti, you answer first.
You cannot have a great health care system when you don't have doctors. This governor signs House Bill 75 a few years ago. What did it do? It allowed doctors to be sued for up to $6 million. And if you sit around and talk to doctors around the state of New Mexico, they will tell you that has been devastating. Doctors are fleeing the state in droves. The governor talks about critical health care across New Mexico, yet we're 60 OBGYNs short. We're 300 primary care physicians short. And we're more than 6,000 nurses short because she has signed a bill that gives a big fat bonus to all her, yes, all of her donors who are lawyers who love this. So when you choose lawyers over doctors, you get a lot more lawyers and a lot fewer doctors, and it has been devastating. Just think about when you go to get a doctor's appointment for you or your kids. Look how long you wait because doctors are heading to other states. So what can we do? We're going to roll back House Bill 75 right away so we get more doctors in here to help you. Number two, we're also going to get rid of the gross receipts tax on doctors. We have to make doing business for doctors in New Mexico more attractive. And then we have to pay the education costs of doctors who want to relocate to the state. Now, the governor's going to tell you, yeah, I'm already doing that. She allocated $1.6 million to it, and we had 600 people apply. 46 took advantage last year. She undercapitalized it. If she cared about health care, she would make sure we could get enough doctors in, and she hasn't done it.
Governor Lujan Grisham, your reply.
Well, we've got someone who wants to be governor who doesn't give a damn about patients and their rights. And I do. I always have. And our policies on healthcare are some of the most robust in the country. Certainly we need more. But look, Mark, it's Medicare that creates the issues with most doctors because we don't get the same rates. And if you can get Congress to fix that for us, I'd like to see you actually try. In addition, we've created a patient affordability fund that's going to create better access and lower healthcare cost premiums. You're against the Inflation Reduction Act, which for the first time allows us to actually negotiate prescription drugs and provide access to actual medical devices that make a difference for our seniors, including hearing aids. You're not interested in affordable, accessible health care. You're just interested in cutting Medicaid. Your own budget proposals create the kind of deepest Republican GOP tax cuts that would reel us into a situation where we can't continue to provide Medicaid coverage for more than 53% of the state. We are now providing access. When you talk about OBGYN, we are one of the only states in America that allows a mother to stay on Medicaid for the first year after she's given birth. These are policies that make a real difference. We're also going to be the first state in America to be able to successfully import drugs from Canada. We've done a lot. More needs to be done. We have a plan to get doctors here, and that includes underwriting their malpractice insurance.
Our next question tonight comes from Bob Clark. Bob.
Candidates, in July, the chair of the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee said he thought it had been unwise for the state to stop taxing food many years ago. In August, the chair of the House Tax and Revenue Committee did not take the idea of reimposing the food tax off the table. If elected, would you sign a bill bringing back the food tax if one were to be passed by the state legislature?
Governor, you go first.
Absolutely not. It's one of the most regressive taxes in the history of the state of New Mexico. The issue is it brings $400 million to the state. What you need to do about tax reform is make sure that you create an economy that will deliver you both recurring and non-recurring revenues that allow you to both have savings, which means strong reserves. It means also having enough money to meet the obligations of the government, which is basically healthcare, education, and public safety. You don't do that, fewer cops, fewer teachers, fewer doctors. fewer doctors. We aren't going to do that. And the tax cuts that we have already brought, which is back-to-back tax cuts for 500,000 New Mexicans, all working families. We've repealed the tax on most Social Security beneficiaries, most military beneficiaries. We extended the tax credit for children, which has raised us. We're the only state in America moving in the right direction out of childhood and family poverty. And we've lowered the gross receipts tax for the first time in 40 years. Now, my opponent's going to tell you he can do that every time. We've done the most robust tax reform dedicated to working families and small businesses than the last several governors combined. We know how to deliver a balanced tax relief agenda to New Mexico while investing in the things that matter. Giving raises to every New Mexican by raising the minimum wage, making sure that we're investing in healthcare, and rebuilding our broken mental health system.
Mr. Ronchetti, you also have 90 seconds.
Governor, it's probably news to every small business owner in this state that you're some big ally of theirs with your huge tax cuts. And I would ask you at home, have you noticed? Have you noticed more money going to your bottom line? No, what you've probably noticed is there's more money going to government. And so when the governor says that we're going to cut, we don't even have to cut to help you and your family here. So first and foremost, to answer the question, the answer is absolutely no. We don't need any more tax increases. Now, when this governor took office, she walked in with a $2 billion surplus and she started raising taxes on everybody. Now, in an election year, she knows she's in trouble. So she says, well, wait a minute, let me cut 1/8 of a point off the gross receipts tax and do a little magic here, a little magic there, and do what 25-year politicians do. Check a couple boxes. It sounds good in front of a friendly crowd, but when people watching this tonight think, am I better off? The answer is no. So what can we do to make you better off? First and foremost, we need to cut the income tax significantly in the state of New Mexico. If you make more than $24,000 a year, you are in the second highest tax bracket in the state. So our plan is simple. If you make under $100,000 a year, we're going to cut your tax burden in half. That's going to put more money in your pocket with skyrocketing fuel prices and, of course, everything happening with inflation that is making things unaffordable. Number two, we're going to have an oil and gas revenue program that comes out of excess money to the government. What does it mean? Well, it means $100 for every billion that the state takes in. So starting next year, we're going to be close to $8 billion in revenue. Every single year, every New Mexican would get $800. That's $3,200 for a family of four, plus your tax cut savings. We are serious about getting you to the end of the month. This governor's not.
We have now reached the part of our debate where the candidates will get directed questions. Bob Clark.
All right, let's go back to abortion here just to follow up on something the governor mentioned earlier during the first part of the conversation, Mark, when she said that Pastor Smotherman at Legacy Church did tell his congregation that you told him privately that you would support banning abortion if elected. First, did you tell him that? And if not, why do you think he said that to his congregation?
Have to ask Pastor Smotherman that, but I will tell you this. I told him everything I've told everybody else in this, and that is that I am pro-life. But I also believe that this is a very, very personal issue, and we need to treat it as such. And there's only one person in this race who's an extremist on this issue, and it's the governor. I have never called for a ban on abortion because the governor of the state of New Mexico cannot ban abortion. And the governor knows this, but she says it anyway. And so what can we do? We can work together to fit something that more appropriately meets the values of the people of the state of New Mexico. What better way is there to do that than to let everyone have a say on it? The governor used to be for making sure that abortion rights were codified into law or into a constitution. Now suddenly she doesn't want any part of that. Why? Because she's in charge right now. She's the one that is setting the agenda. She's the one who goes and takes $10 million of taxpayer money and starts a new abortion clinic all by herself down in Las Cruces to Service, Texas. I am not going to ban abortion. I am going to give everyone a voice in all of this, and it's disingenuous for the governor, the expert on government, to talk about things that a governor can't even do.
Dan Boyd, you have the next directed question. Go ahead, please.
Governor, this question is for you. During the Me Too movement, your campaign settled a complaint with a former campaign spokesman who accused you of sexual mistreatment. Why would you insist you did nothing wrong but still pay him?
Governor, your reply?
Well, these are really a continuation of the Mark Ronchetti campaign, working diligently on baseless and frankly desperate character attacks. you know, we did a couple of things that nobody does. We provided absolute disclosure about this issue and provided that information directly to individuals. We did that because that's been the issue of our entire government, to be transparent. We're the first administration to be transparent about every single expense. No other governor has done that. You've seen the baseless false attacks that Mark Ronchetti and his campaign have run against us consistently, because these are all desperate efforts to hide the fact that he has no plan, he has no experience, he's a TV personality. And frankly, when he says that he wants to give a choice, look, Mark Ronchetti, you're not invited into the room with me and my gynecologist. Women already have this choice. When you talk about the Constitution, you're inviting a resolution to change the Constitution. When you do that, you're doing that solely to reduce my rights. I know that you're trying to make this sound like somehow it's balanced. It absolutely isn't. And having a clinic in Las Cruces is contraceptive care. It's reproductive health care for women and their families. It's comprehensive primary care. You're so concerned about health care access. Explain to me why you don't want a clinic for women anywhere in the state.
Our next question is from Dan Boyd to both candidates. Dan.
Yes, with New Mexico's rate of firearm-related deaths having nearly doubled over the last decade, would you support additional gun safety measures? And why do you believe recent measures, such as expanded background checks for firearm purchases and allowing guns to be temporarily seized from individuals determined to pose a threat to themselves or others, have not been successful so far in reducing gun violence rates?
Mr. Ronchetti, you go first.
Dan, they're not successful because they don't address the problem. What we have is a violent criminal problem across the state of New Mexico. That's the biggest issue. I'm for responsible gun ownership, no doubt, and I'm for background checks as well, no question. But we have to go after the people that are causing the problems in our communities, and those are repeat offenders. Unfortunately, this governor has regularly let repeat offenders out early, and not only that, she also continues to go down a path where we appoint judges that currently turn people right back out on the street as well. And when you see all of these things matched together, it turns up a disaster with our policy. So what we have to do in this particular case is go after those who are most targeting our communities. So how do we do that? First and foremost, what we do is we end catch and release in the state of New Mexico. This governor said she could get anything through the legislature, but she couldn't get that through. And the reason why is the majority of her big time supporters are trial attorneys who love it. And so if you can't stand up and end catch and release, and I will stop everything down in the legislature till we get catch and release ended in the state of New Mexico. We're also going to actually enact a tough 3 strikes law. We're going to support our police officers, because if we don't start supporting them, we're going to continue to see them leave the state. They know their governor doesn't support them. State police are down in numbers, Albuquerque Police Department are down in numbers, and every single division across the state here for law enforcement is down in numbers. It's why APOA, the Albuquerque Police Officers Association, and the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed me. They know she's the catch and release governor who will not improve this in any way.
Governor, reply.
Again, so I'm the only candidate tonight who has actually proposed that we go to a federal system, which means that you have a rebuttable presumption if you should be released. And you're right, in a 30-day session, which you might not know because you have no experience, is the budget session. I couldn't get that passed. But in fact, in a 60-day session, I'm feeling as confident as you can, given the fact that a lot of folks that are elected, duly elected in an independent branch of government are unsure about whether or not that adequately protects people who are too poor to be out of jail but pose no threat. But I'm going to ask for it again, and I'm going to keep fighting, because in fact I'm a fighter who delivers. On this particular question, I'm also the only candidate that's brought real gun violence reforms to the state. We're one of only 14 states with a universal background check. We also have a mental health risk order legislation on the books, and we have a gun violence protection for victims of domestic violence, which, by the way, in the Beltran case that you wanted to talk about, if we had had the Republican DA who would prosecute on that issue, we might not have had a person who had access to a firearm in the first place. And you bet I'm willing to do more. We probably need safe storage. We need real accountability for local law enforcement that doesn't enforce those particular gun laws. And I would increase the age in order to get access to automatic weapons in the state of New Mexico to at least 21.
In a 2020,
Doug, can I go ahead and
Okay, this is
respond to
your
that?
second and
Yes,
final one,
this
Mark.
is.
Go ahead.
So, by the way, just to be clear, on the Chris Beltran case, the guy who escaped prison and then went and killed his girlfriend, the governor's parole board let him out early. The governor's parole board. Again, a bunch of finger pointing to not the. Excuse me. So am I. Excuse me. So when we look at this, those are the facts. And you heard the governor give a blizzard of excuses as to why things are not working out, and she's pointing fingers every which way. And again, here comes the charge. I haven't been in the roundhouse enough. I've been on the streets of this city. I've been all across the state of New Mexico. Everyone has had enough of the excuses, Governor. They want action.
In a 2021 U.S. News and World Report ranking, New Mexico ranked last in the nation for education. Now, this next question comes from voter Adelina Prochnow of Albuquerque.
New Mexico is known to be really low in our public education. Do you see incentivizing teachers with higher pay rate or getting better accessibility to students everywhere and just like reaching out? What does it look like? I mean, at this point, education should be an equal opportunity. How do you plan on affecting that, and what does that look like for us as a local community?
Governor Lujan Grisham, you reply first.
I really appreciate this question. When I took the reins, and am very proud of being the governor, in fact, we were engaged in a lawsuit brought against the former governor for failing to meet the constitutional requirements to educate our children. That lawsuit, known as Yazzie Martinez, was a clear indication that we failed to provide the investments into public education that we're required to. And in fact, he's going to double down and redeploy the same budget cuts to education. We now have the highest paid educators in the region. We have invested billions of dollars into the classroom for smaller class sizes. We reduced the teacher vacancies just this year by 34%. We have universal pre-K, and we have the best benefits in the country for childcare, and we have more kids now going to college, 2-year, 4-year, than we've ever had before, and it's the best program now in the country. Look, I want better results. We all do in education immediately, but we can't do this anymore. We pull all of those investments, a mandatory literacy program, funding for extended time in the classroom, more attention to before and after school programs, getting into home visiting, staying with families. He's going to talk to you about privatizing education and vouchers for tutoring. I'm going to talk to you about building the cornerstones of a world-class education system that the Pew Charitable Trust has identified. 2 states are getting this right, and it will pay off: Minnesota and New Mexico. And I believe that.
Mr. Ronchetti, your reply.
Governor, your be patient attitude for those of us with kids in school honestly wears thin. We don't have any more time, Governor. What we have right now is the 51st education ranking in the country. 3/4 of our kids can't do math, and almost 3/4 can't read to grade level here. And look, I know you're very good at stating a blizzard of your failed policies, and then you go and make up mine. You can go look at our education policy very clearly on our website. We strictly focus on public school education here. There is no vouchers or anything else. There's no need to make that up, Governor. We disagree on enough that you don't have to make my policy up. So here's where we are, and here's what we can do. Number one, we have to get more money into the classroom. We've increased spending in administration 60% in this state, and we've only increased spending in the classroom 20%. We have to change that, and we have to get more spending into the classroom. Too many teachers are left with 32 kids deep in their classroom, and they're expected to teach them. We can help with that. We also have to catch our kids up from COVID. The governor's decision to hold kids out as long as any other state in the country has been devastating. What we have now are truancy rates at 43% in the Albuquerque School District. We have issues with mental health with kids, and she did it because she wanted to look tough for Joe Biden. She didn't do it because it was the best thing for our kids, unfortunately. And now so many of us see what's happening with suicide rates and where we are. We've got to catch kids up. Yes, we'll provide stipends for extra tutoring. Yes, we're going to get in the classroom and spend more money. There's no doubt. There will be no education cuts, and any assertion that there will be is a lie.
The next question comes from Action 7 News anchor Shelley Rabando. Shelley.
Staying on the topic of education, there is a big debate happening at schools all across the country about when and what topics should be covered as part of a sex education curriculum. New Jersey just implemented a statewide mandate requiring schools to teach middle schoolers about sex acts. And Florida has a law in place banning any classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through third grades. Do you agree or disagree with either state policy, and why?
Mr. Ronchetti, you go first.
We have huge issues with our education system in the state, and we should be focusing on the basics: math, science, reading, and we also have to spend as much time as we possibly can on history. And some of that history is ugly, there is no doubt, but kids deserve to learn the truth about history across the board here. But to me, when we start taking that focus and turning it in other places, this is why we have the problems that we have. Under this governor, we have social studies standards that are designed to divide kids by race, by gender, any way possible. In fact, you can go read the social studies standards on the PED website. Go to about the last 5 or 6 pages or so. There's no place for that. The governor has taken us down to 51 in education. We have massive issues across the board here. We need to focus on getting our kids caught up, because they are not caught up right now. We should have had summer learning academies last summer. We need them the next 2 to 3 summers, and we also need additional time in the classroom. And I'm not necessarily talking about additional time where it's, hey, if you'd like a little additional time, here's a little bit of additional time. We need true leadership on this. And what this governor has done is she has punted. She has not stepped in and done what needs to be done. But when you lose focus and you start trying to teach things that are not core to the mission for our kids, you do them a tremendous disservice. And effectively what happens is, down the road, our kids are behind because they spend too much time worrying about things that don't allow them to be competitive in the world they're walking into. Too many kids aren't ready, and we'll have them ready.
Governor Lujan Grisham, you have 90 seconds.
I absolutely disagree with those policies. Look, states that have comprehensive sex education lower teenage pregnancies. That's where our highest risk birth rates and birth outcomes are. When I was the Secretary of Health, I fought a Republican administration, the Bush administration, and won to make sure that we were going to teach abstinence-only, non-evidence-based policies in our schools. And when we did age-appropriate sex education from K through 12, we dropped the rate of teen pregnancies, and quite frankly, New Mexico is still doing that. The social studies standards were required to be updated after nearly 20 years because the last governor created such a constitutional liability. We're being directed by the courts. And by the way, I do believe that parents, right, and local influences should dictate many of the policies at schools, which is why we have independent school boards. They get to decide whether or not we're investing in what. So when we provide $110 million for extended learning in the classroom, and by the way, that did happen in the summer, which is why we have higher graduation rates. And now the highest that the state have ever seen, right? Students accessing higher education, 2-year, 4-year licenses, certificates, which means they're staying here and they're working here and they're building families and careers here. It's nuts not to provide evidence-based public policy inside our schools.
Okay, our rules, as you heard at the top of our debate, allow for each candidate to ask one question. And Mr. Ronchetti, you go first. You have 30 seconds to ask it.
Governor, I want to ask you about James Hallinan. He was one of your staffers in your last election, and you were in a meeting with him, and you grabbed his crotch and you said, "Is there anything down here?" Governor, you then had him sign a non-disclosure agreement, so he kept his mouth shut. You then, about 2 months later, signed a law in the state of New Mexico outlawing those agreements, and that further allowing people who are the victims of these type events to be able to talk. Why shouldn't your victim be able to talk?
Mark, again, you have spent your entire campaign attacking my character and my integrity. They are baseless attacks, and you do that including now to hide from the fact that, again, you're a TV personality with no experience. You've never had an employee. You've never run a large organization, and you haven't had to adhere to any number of court actions like the court action in education that require you to develop policies and to create standards that not only protect kids but move us forward. The only thing you have an actual plan for is to ban abortion in the state of New Mexico. I've been really clear about that and clear about the fact that you have only been utilizing baseless false attacks. And again, when you talk about non-disclosures, we have been the most transparent, including providing information about every expenditure, audited, independently reviewed. No governor in the history of the state of New Mexico has done that. And no effort by you or anyone else to try to disparage my character under any circumstances throughout your campaign to hide from the fact that you have no real experience and that your only plan is to cut public spending on public safety, healthcare, and education, and to ban abortion in the state of New Mexico. I'm going to stay strong.
Governor, it's your turn. You have 30 seconds to ask Mark your question.
I have a pretty simple question, and I think it's pretty straightforward. What is misoprostol?
Here we go again. This is what 25 years in government gets you. This gets you a governor who wants to play Jeopardy. She wants to go and get Alex Trebek wound up. Let me see what I can ask. And let me tell you something, Governor. People have had enough of the political games. It's garbage at this point. And let's talk about this. You said you've been more transparent than any governor in history. Governor, you grabbed a male staffer's crotch, a gay male, and then you said, is there anything down there? You then paid him $150,000, Governor, and then you made him shut up about it. And now you have the gall to sit up here and not only victimize James Hallinan, but you re-victimize him. If you remember back, you said during the Andrew Cuomo scandal, if you don't believe those who go and bring these charges, then you're re-victimizing. So you're victimizing, re-victimizing, and now, and the topper of all toppers, you're creating yourself as the victim. Governor, this is the sort of thing that people cannot stand. You've never come clean. You've never said, look, I made a mistake, here we go. You've just continued to lie about this issue time after time after time. And let me tell you about experience. Experience, especially the experience we need in this office, is someone with character. Someone who has been in tough situations and doesn't lie about them, doesn't belittle people, and doesn't try to shrink other people to make themselves feel better. You on a regular basis do that in every single way. You shut down stores and then you go jewelry shopping. You shut down our ability to see our families and then you hold parties. And then you keep our kids out of school and you roll up to Navajo Lake and you have a party with your friends while we're on lockdown. You are a hypocrite, Governor.
Shelley Rabando, you have our next question. Okay, this is the final rebuttal for both candidates. You are now out of rebuttals. Go ahead, Governor. You have 30 seconds.
You just saw he talks about a blizzard. This is a blizzard of nonsense, all right? It's one character attack. If I was doing anything that was a violation of the COVID rules, you would have a photo of that. I religiously did that, and I will tell you who didn't do that while he was campaigning in 2020 was Mark Ronchetti. Now let me tell you what misoprostol is. It is a life-saving drug for women, often required for medical abortions that now women can't get to treat cancer. If you don't know what that is and you don't know the consequences of your decision and you don't know the importance of providing comprehensive health care access, you don't deserve to be governor.
Okay, back to Shelley for our next question. Shelley.
New Mexico's unemployment rate, while down from this time last year, is still higher than the national average. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we are one of the worst states in the nation for unemployment. Add to that inflation, and New Mexicans are really suffering these days. What is your plan to help people find work and put money back in New Mexicans' pockets?
Governor, you go first.
Look, I'm frankly very proud of the fact that we have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had in 14 years. And you start with a significant issue related to poverty. No training, no college, no certificates, no licenses, no investments in people's future. And it's tough. You also have to build an economy where people have access to jobs. We have the fourth best economy in the nation when you compare gross receipts over those businesses over last year. It's a monumental achievement for the state. Every single economic sector, including hospitality, is overperforming in the state. Now, my opponent is going to tell you we lost 40% of our small businesses. We have 161,000 businesses. That would be, frankly, apocalyptic. We are above our 2019 standards, even for small business growth. We're doing the right work. Look, Shelley, we're going to have to keep investing to make sure that we're moving people. One of the big issues, you might have seen it in the Journal today, is that the cliff effect. For me to take a minimum wage, which is now higher, I gave everyone a raise in New Mexico, police officers, teachers, doctors, made sure that we raised the minimum wage, we raised the salaries on all of the economic development investments that we make from $42,000 to $60,000. We invested $1.5 billion to small businesses, $1 billion to help families. We've done hundreds of millions for housing and rental assistance. These are the things that really make a difference, and we're going to stay the course, and we're going to keep lowering unemployment every month.
Mr. Ronchetti.
Wow. Okay, I don't even know where to begin here. I gave everyone a raise in the state. That's patently ridiculous, and that is from someone who spent her lifetime in government. They can't see out the walls of the roundhouse, and so she actually believes she gave everyone a raise in the state of New Mexico. Number one, and she also said we are the 4th best economy in the nation. How's that working out for you? Do you feel like we're the best 4th, top 5 economy? This is what happens when you sit around a table with other government types and you twist enough data to say, hey, say this, it'll sound great. And if they don't look at their actual lives, maybe we can get away with it. It's ridiculous. And this is the problem with lifetime politicians. It's a list of box checks that don't work. And our system was never designed to have somebody come in and sit there for 30 years and try to convince you why they should make decisions for you. So here's what we'll do on the economy. And these are rock solid plans, and you can look at them on our website as well. And number one, we're going to cut the income tax in the state of New Mexico. You need some help and you need money in your pocket. Also, we've talked about the oil and gas revenue program for a family of 4. That's going to average $3,200 a year. And I want to just circle back to one other thing. This governor has been really hard on small businesses. There's no doubt. We are going to end pyramiding for small businesses in the state of New Mexico, meaning they get taxed more than big businesses. We want to change that, and we will cut the gross receipts tax every year for the next 8 years.
Our next question tonight comes from KKOB's Bob Clark. Bob.
The Energy Transition Act of 2019 led to the closure of the San Juan generating station 2 weeks ago by PNM. This despite PNM executives telling the PRC they're not going to have enough energy to meet demand in our state in the summers of 2023 and 2024, and it will likely lead to rolling blackouts. If you're elected, what are you going to do about it?
Mr. Ronchetti, you go first.
Well, first and foremost, this never should have happened. So why did PNM shut down the San Juan generating station? Well, they got a big fat payout from this governor's administration of $300 million that, by the way, if you're a PNM ratepayer, you're paying for that. So now PNM takes the $300 million, shuts down San Juan, and then what do? Well, we have to go one of two places for the power. We're going to have to go to the outside market, which is going to cost us more money, or we're going to have blackouts or brownouts, and that's devastating. And what it is it's the governor's California energy policy, which is devastating to the state of New Mexico. Does it sound familiar? You hear it all the time in California. You can't charge that electric vehicle in a brownout. This governor is also, in the last legislative session, she proposed a bill to raise gas prices 35 to 50 cents a gallon. Again, these are the kind of policies, when you spend your life in government and you don't actually talk to people in your own state, you think are a good idea. It's a terrible idea. She also has a plan on the table right now to increase the amount of EV sales with a government mandate by 7-fold here over the next couple of years. The average EV is $66,000. That is going to drive up cars prices not only in EVs, but in gasoline-powered cars as well. It's going to crush working families. That's going to be devastating. We should keep San Juan generating station open, take an all-of-the-above approach, which includes the best oil and gas industry in the world, and invest in nuclear and hydrogen going forward.
Governor Lujan Grisham, your reply.
Well, first, I take exception, Bob, to the fact that you say the ETA led to the closure of the San Juan coal-fired plant and generating station. That's just not true. That was going to happen well before the Energy Transition Act, which brought renewable energy standards to New Mexico, frankly created more energy investments in oil and gas, brought $40 million, $20 million directly to workers, $20 million directly to economic development at the county. The country can't afford, there's no money in, right, coal, and as a result, the private sector makes these decisions. And so that was really an unfair characteristic, but I noticed that my opponent, who doesn't know what the Energy Transition Act does or how it works, which has nothing to do with EV vehicles, and the same threats about making sure that we have renewable energy, which, by the way, New Mexico has more job growth in solar and wind than any other state in the nation, with the cheapest solar in the nation and the largest wind farm in the country. And that is actually both developed and invested in many ways by oil and gas. We need to be an all of the above energy state. Who's bringing hydrogen? Who's the lead state in the country for hydrogen? We are. And why? Because I'm the governor and am bringing smart energy policies to the state. Why else? Because I actually believe in climate change, unlike my opponent. We have to reduce methane gas emissions, which means that we have the strongest, toughest standards now adopted by the federal government and embraced by the oil and gas industry, as well as ozone standards. I don't believe in this brownout issue because we're going to have enough renewable energy to cover New Mexico.
Time is up. Thank you. And because of time, your reply for the next question needs to be 45 seconds. That is half your time. Dan Boyd, go ahead and ask your question, please.
We've seen the effects of climate change globally across our country and right here in New Mexico. Nowhere was that more evident than with the massive, destructive wildfires of this past summer that changed and destroyed the lives of so many New Mexicans. What concerns you most about climate change in New Mexico, and what would be your top priorities for addressing it in the state?
Governor, you have 45 seconds.
I appreciate the question. Those devastating wildfires we are still dealing with because of the floods. We've been working diligently with the federal government on the Inflation Reduction Act, which you might know is now a law, which provides incredible investments in climate change protections for states like New Mexico. We have also convinced the federal government that they can't do prescribed burns in the way that they have. We're also going to be getting $20 billion for water investments for state that is frankly being aridified by climate change. We have to do all of that and meet our net zero, which I'm going to ask the legislature to bring me a 2050 plan for a net zero design, not just for utilities, but for every sector in the state of New Mexico.
Thank you. Mr. Ronchetti.
Look, the best thing we can do to deal with the threat of wildfires is to handle it with a proper environmental policy. Far left environmentalists supported by this governor have shut down logging all across New Mexico. So when that fire broke out over the summer, it exploded with more fuel than it knew what to do with. We have to stop as a state allowing people who don't even live here to go and dictate what our policies are. We need to log throughout the northern and southern mountains. We need to log that deadfall out, and we need to make sure we care for our forests here. But right now, we're not doing that because the governor is beholden to a far left environmentalist group that is putting New Mexico at risk. There is no question about that, and I will put an end to that, at least their influence, no question, and we need to start logging again as well. And look, climate change is something we need to deal with, but as you look at where we are across the state here, we have the cleanest, most efficient oil and gas industry in the world. We can help be a bridge going forward here across the world as well. New Mexico is going to have a huge role, but wild-eyed environmentalists that support this governor will not let her take the proper steps to allow working families to afford what they need to.
Okay, time now for closing statements. Mark Ronchetti, you go first.
Well, you've heard quite a back and forth between the governor and I appreciate the governor taking the time here, but this is a very different vision for where we go as a state, there's no doubt. And one thing I would ask you to do is to look into our future and say, what do we want to be? Do we want to be the state with high crime, with the second highest crime, with a governor who continually releases people back out on the street? Or do we want to say, no, wait a minute, we can do this better. We can keep violent criminals behind bars and we can make safer streets. Do we want to have a state where we have an education system where we're last and 3/4 of our kids can't read to proficiency? No, we can get more money to the classroom, we can catch our kids up, and we can be a state that is a great story for the future on better results for our kids. And finally, we can be a state that looks out for you before it looks out for government. But you have to give us a chance at change. And we would appreciate the opportunity to stand up and to be your voice. I humbly ask for your vote.
Governor, you also have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Doug, and I thank the viewers for tonight. You have two distinct choices. You can choose a governor who's delivered on taxes, delivered on investments in the classroom and education, who's given teachers a raise, officers a raise, doctors a raise. You can believe in a governor who just today is now spending on these essential public services by today's dollars what we were spending 16 years ago. Or you can believe someone whose only agenda, only policy is to, quite frankly, ban abortion and interfere with my private health care decisions. When he talks about his plans, he has no real plans. He has an outline, and quite frankly, from most of that economic agenda, it's taken right from our successful economic policies. I believe in the cornerstones that we have built on every aspect. So instead of reducing budgets and creating bans, bad for New Mexicans, bad for New Mexico, I hope to receive your vote, which is a vote for opportunity and success for our state.
Candidates, thank you, and you at home, thank you for watching tonight's debate. Good night.